Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Blackshirt Breakdown. My name is Steve Marik. I'm a staff writer at Inside Nebraska, and that is Jay Foreman, our 8-year NFL veteran and former Nebraska Blackshirt. Jay, how you doing today?
I'm doing good, man. It's we're chugging along, busting these things out as the staff is starting to come into completion, and so there's plenty to talk about.
Yeah, and let's get right into it. Nebraska recently hired Tony White, a 3-year defensive coordinator from Syracuse. He spent 9 years at San Diego State, and I think those were very formative years in his coaching career, learning and coaching under Rocky Long, the 3-3-5 guru who spent most of his career
Right.
on the West Coast, kind of developing that system and making his own tweaks to it. But yeah, that's where Tony White did most of his assistant coaching at San Diego State with the Aztecs and kind of learning that 3-3-5 scheme. But now he took it to Syracuse and is now headed to Lincoln with that thing. So Jay, first of all, what are your thoughts? What are your initial reactions to the hiring of Tony White as the Huskers defensive coordinator?
Well, I mean, I guess I was only surprised in the sense of the usual suspects. He wasn't one of the usual suspects. So that's actually a good thing,
Mm-hmm.
essentially, that he maybe looked outside the box, or, he kind of maybe took a landscape and probably maybe took some time or heard, this guy is really a up and coming coordinator that you need to get him before he really starts to take off. And maybe Coach Rule had saw, Syracuse play defense, and he probably heard, all these coaches talk. So that's the only surprise there. But his, resume and in the way that his defenses have played, I'm not surprised. And he grew up, playing in the 3-3-5. He's primarily only coached the 3-3-5, throughout his coaching career, which is for him is good. It's something, he believes in something that he had success in, he saw success in, and that he played in. And then he also saw it, as a coach as well. So he knows it inside out. And so just for him to be able to articulate it to the coaching staff is going to be even more seamless, in the sense of he knows the ins and outs of it, how people will learn, how people can coach it. So I think it's a good hire. I think, he's done really well in recruiting. And I think the one thing about him with a 3-3-5, and we'll get into it a little bit later, is I like it that for him as a defensive coordinator, regardless of what front he or what scheme he runs, he made whatever personnel he had work, and he continued to get better. So, or the defenses continue to get better. And so that's credit to him and his coaching staff. So I'm excited to see what he can do and what he does with the guys on the roster and what they do with guys in the transfer portal and all that stuff. And it'll be interesting to see how they morph, the roster that he has right now with the new guys, along with his scheme against the Big Ten team. So I think it's going to be must see TV.
And so, like we do every week with one of these videos, we kind of take a look back at the coaches or the recruits' previous stop, and we break some plays down. So let's head over to some Syracuse film. My first play that I wanted to go through, you, Jay, was their game against Pitt. Now, Pitt was not the offense from 2021 with Mark Whipple calling the
Yeah.
offense. They are by far a run first offense. They are using 2 tight ends, 3 tight ends almost, 22 personnel. It is not the same as the high flying offense from 2021 that Mark Whipple had. So Jay, take it away. This is Syracuse playing on the road, going on the road at Pitt. Very first,
Right.
one of the first plays of Pitt's day here.
Right, yeah. It's Pitt's getting the ball, their first possession. Right here, 22 personnel. You see the fullback, he's letting you know they're running it. They're in a 3-4 front, 3-man down, 4 linebackers, 4 defensive backs. You got to see the safety coming down, number 14. He's the field player, and they're playing essentially like a little bit of a counter zone to the outside, and it's a good play there by the linebackers. They came clean, good read. If you look at the defensive line, one thing I usually like to look at is, are they getting off on the ball? And one thing that's stood out to me with this play here, obviously you can tell by their body types a little bit, smaller, but they got off on the ball and tried to establish a line of scrimmage. So the emphasis in the playmaking ability, especially in the run game, at least in this defense against Pittsburgh, the onus is on the second level, the linebackers, and then the safety fill-in. So when you look at the linebackers here versus the defensive line, you see the nose tackle right there, right off the get-go, off the snap, holds the line of scrimmage. They look like they had some sort of stunt. You see number 2 scraping over the top. Good play there. He makes it for a 2 or 3 yard gain. You see the linebacker that took on the fullback. He did a good job of being physical and obviously, finishing the play. So, right here is just the base 34 front. This is what Nebraska's been playing, for quite some time under Eric Shenander. Good feel right there. And you see other players there as well, number 1 and number 0 there to make the play. So from a schematic standpoint, everything looks pretty clean. From a reality standpoint, even though everybody's talking about the 3-3-5, this is no different than what we've been playing here at Nebraska. It's a 3-man front, 4 linebackers, obviously different size because of the way, the conference that they're in the ACC versus the Big Ten. But this is the play that, Tony White will see, especially against Wisconsin, against Minnesota, against Michigan State, against Ohio State in a version. You'll see it in a way against Purdue, but different personnel, or at least did. Illinois, you'll see it all day long. So this is, something that, he's, schematically wise is not going to be a surprise to him. Now it's just marrying the personnel with his scheme and running, 3-3-5 or 3-4. And, I think sometimes people get so caught up in the numbers. Mm-hmm. When they have 22 personnel, they're going to play more of a, 3-4 look and so forth and so on. And you never know, he might play a 4-3 look, even though it's a 3-3-5 on paper. So it'll be interesting to see what he does, but I like the scheme right here. It's nothing new. Like I said, their defensive line is a lot lighter than what Nebraska is. And you see Pitt, is a totally different team. Essentially 3 tight ends in there. Number 4 is actually a tight end, and they're running, counter outside boss week right here, outside zone. They're coming counter zone outside. We're coming right at you. First play of the game, trying to establish their identity. And Syracuse did a pretty good job right there at the point of attack, play with good leverage. And so that lets Tony White being a former linebacker, he is going to keep an eye on his linebackers. And so those 4 guys that are playing right now, and even the safety coming down right here, mm-hmm. He is coaching them and he is watching them with a fine, comb and with a laser-like focus. And so when you see the linebackers right there, they know their defensive coordinator, and maybe he was a linebacker coach as well, but he's expecting excellent play right there, excellent play from his linebackers, and that's what they've done right there.
To give people a sense of the size difference between Syracuse and Nebraska, Syracuse's starting nose guard was 5'11", 266 pounds, just a fire hydrant of a dude. But that guy, he was a bulldog. He really tries hard, cares a lot, and it's a different roster personnel wise on the East Coast at Syracuse than kind of like a Big Ten place like Nebraska. So that's one thing in recruiting that Tony White will have to maybe kind of just maybe change or adjust, evolve as that goes on. But let's go to the second play here. They are hosting NC State. Now this is again a 2 tight end look. Right. NC State is in the shotgun, and I think if my memory serves me right, this is just a split zone run with 2 tight ends in the game. So Jay, take it away.
Yeah, see, this is more of your traditional 3-3-5 look. You got the 3 defensive linemen. Number 2, who in the previous play was a stack linebacker. Now he's more like of a rover, because you can see by his size, he's more of a big safety. Then you got another safety coming down, and you got 2 stack linebackers. So this is more your 3-3-5 look against 12 personnel shotgun. And he feels in Syracuse has played well, against a split zone type of run scheme. The 3-3-5 in general is set up to play against spread teams. So, when you're thinking Purdue, you're thinking obviously NC State, you're thinking maybe North Carolina, maybe Clemson. So that's where you see him, where his defensive stats and his teams have played well. And so look, right there, you see, number 1, you talked about the nose guard being 5'11", 265. Mm-hmm. He's setting the tone. I mean, every time I've watched him and watch Syracuse, he's the guy that's off the ball, getting off the ball, setting, the line of scrimmage and using his leverage and trying to see right there. He's knocking number 60 back to center to set the line of scrimmage, which is making the fill lane for number 2. You see him, the little alley, kind of like the rover alley player, 14 was a down safety, and allowed 45. It allowed the other linebackers and the defensive line to get on the play for a 1 or 2 yard gain against an NC State team and offense that had generally been pretty physical as far as running the ball. They had a couple offensive linemen drafted high in the draft, and obviously some tight ends and receivers and running backs as well. And so when you see number 45 right here, we're talking about him being a fire hydrant, but look how he sets the line of scrimmage, the good leverage, hands right here, and he sheds right here. You see him, he's right here. He's going to be the guy that makes the play.
Yep.
And granted, he's not coming over here to be able to do that in the Big Ten. Being 5'11", 265 will most likely not last 12 games in the Big Ten, but you can get maybe a glimpse of what he's expecting out of maybe a Nash Hutmacher, maybe a Ty Robinson. I doubt that would play over the nose, or somebody like that's coming back next year, maybe a win. This is what you're expecting right here. And in any defense, regardless if you're a 3-3-5, 4-3, 3-4, 5-2, you have to be strong up the middle. So the guy that's, over the center has to be a dude. He has to take it personally. He has to care about setting a new line of scrimmage. And I think the way that he plays and the way that they're playing, they try to hit everything downhill and try to get the gaps. You'll see a little bit later in another play. They try to do some scheme things to get the defensive lineman, on the move, I call it, or on the run to make some plays. So there's some versatility there. And so part of the 3-3-5 and the 3-4 and some 4-3s is to confuse the offensive lineman, who they have and where you're coming from, in the pass game as far as blitzing. And so that's where you can get some hesitancy from the offensive lineman. You might see 54 right there finishing a play, but you saw the guard or the center and the two guards both miss guys, and able to give these smaller defensive linemen chances to get off blocks and then make plays in the backfield. And you see a good play right here by the Syracuse defense.
And the Syracuse defense, they nicknamed the Mob over there in Syracuse. Now let's head over to the Pitt game again. So look, we've had two, I think, solid plays, but let's go to a play that did not look so solid here. Look, Pitt just runs over Syracuse's defense here. So Jay, tell me what went wrong here for Syracuse.
Well, right here, Pitt's in like 13 personnel, 1 back, 3 tight ends, and they're coming right at you. And Syracuse is, again, like I said, got the guys, here in a 3-man front, but they get caught in a stunt, and they're stunting towards the 2 tight end set. And then Pitt runs into the weak side here. And so you see the nose tackle, and he swoops left. And so you'd like the linebackers to really, really scrape hard and stack hard to their right. They're a little bit late on the read, and you see this right here. But the weakness of a defense like this is, if you get caught in a stunt, it allows the offensive lineman, and particularly their left guard and left tackle and their center, it allows them to have angles on your second level. And so this is where happened. You see right here, you see the nose guard right here goes to his left, and the right defensive tackle is playing head up, but he goes into his left. So all the gaps for the linebackers move over. You can either align right there, or you have to get there on the snap. But your angles that you're giving up as far as the offensive lineman able to come and get up on you in the second level and get in your face and kind of maul you there, can be a weakness of the defense. But I'll say this, they even had an alley filler there where number 1, if you see this on the right side, so I'm not sure if the linebacker scraped too far to the right and got pushed out and washed out there, but you see number 1 still had a player there to make the play. He needs to make that play. So you might not have given up a touchdown, but that's a weakness of the defense, to where if you get caught in a stunt and the play doesn't go where you think it is, because a lot of times you're playing the percentage, you're going to run to the 2 tight end set. That's probably Pat Narduzzi and Pitt this year, running to the 2 tight end set. They do some self-scouting, go away from it, and then they probably seen Syracuse do that a lot. You got caught in what's called a run stunt or a run blitz, but you still had a backside player that was free. And so number 1 needing to make the tackle. But when we're talking about a little bit of the weaknesses of a defense like this, the weakness isn't in the scheme, right? 100% in the scheme. It's just in the execution of the stunts and what you have to do, sometimes in a 3-man front or in a traditional 3-3-5 look. But I will say this, if he had generally to play a 3-3-5 or a 3-man front, let's just say a 3-man front, in the Big Ten, you're going to have bigger defensive linemen that are really, really good with technique, really, really good with their hands, and can establish the line of scrimmage. So if you have that, you can run any type of defense you want on the second level. And so, maybe at Syracuse they only had 3 good linebackers that they could play. So they had more rovers and safeties and guys that were kind of Javen Wrights or like an Applegate that was kind of, not a true outside linebacker, but can run a little bit like a safety type of hybrid. Maybe they had more hybrids because of recruiting. They weren't, in the weight room enough to be true outside linebackers. And so, in this scheme, the defensive line is going to set the tone. And so, in his 3-3-5, if he gets good push in the middle and gets guys to, even when they're running these run stunts, to still establish their line of scrimmage, not submarine themselves into the 2 blocks, as you saw number 94 there, which allows 55 to get up on number 2, which will maybe make that alley for the safety fit to be a little bit tighter and not give up a touchdown. Those are things that come from, personnel decision and obviously call decisions. But, right now we know he's going to run a 3-3-5 and he's been doing it his whole career. So I don't think it's going to change. And so it's just going to have to be morphed into that personnel and it could work out fine.
And so we go from Pitt, we go from NC State, who are using 2 tight ends, to just your 11 personnel. I know they're in empty right now with their game against Purdue, but the tight end is out there as kind of a slot receiver. And
Right.
I thought this was good to show, just to see how Syracuse reacted to just kind of an empty set with a lot of receivers out there.
Right. Well, I mean, we broke down the Purdue game where Nebraska didn't react really well to tight end motion, number 1, and then also empty sets, and where we got kind of beat up a little bit, both in the run and the passing game. And this Purdue offense this defense is tailor-made for a Purdue offense. It's set up to, to play well against the spread, feel like you can do well against the run. We have more athletes on the field to make plays, and you see how they're feeling right here. And we saw this play against Nebraska, right? You see the edge player, and then you see the alley filler in number 2. And we saw this play for Nebraska to where it gave up an explosive play. And you see the defensive linemen were able to get out of the stack and run. One of the advantages of having a little bit smaller defensive line. I'm sure Tony White, and with a nickname like the Mob, they feel like everybody has to get to the ball. So you see 90, 93, number 3, number 2 makes the play. And then the safety, the quarter safety down there, or the third safety down there, really does a good job going up against a big tight end, defeating the block or setting the edge and getting back into the play. And so if you want to look at a game, if you're looking via YouTube, how Nebraska possibly could potentially be able to defend Purdue, which has been an offense that has given a lot of teams a lot of trouble in the Big Ten, even though their coordinator and head coach is gone, and Brom, he's off to Louisville, and their quarterback is probably going to the NFL. The schematics isn't going to change. The offensive line isn't going to change. And you look at the way that even their defensive line, even though it's a quick screen, is getting off the ball, coming out of the stack and running into the ball, because they know if number 2 didn't make that play, it's their job to make the play. And so, you can look at the effort that's demanded by Coach White, through, these players here. But then also you can see the advantages of having a quote unquote 3-3-5 when you have more hybrid type of linebacker, safety, combination guys out there to stop against offenses like this out on the perimeter, which at times it hurt Nebraska this year, but mainly in years past. And so when you think of, even back to the first year with Scott Frost's crew, Northwestern going 98 yards, you think about all the different, Colorado, up at Colorado, being able to drive the ball through, out there on the edge. This defense is set up to, try to curtail that and obviously do well against, spread teams that try to beat you on the perimeter.
Great stuff, Jay. Another week of doing these Blackshirt Breakdown videos. I'm having a lot of fun. I'm learning a lot about Tony White and his 3-3-5 system. Yeah, let's do it again some other time, and maybe some recruits as well. Nebraska had a big official visit weekend this past week.
Yeah, I think as they start to add, to the final coaching staff, we can kind of go back and kind of really get a good look at the whole coaching staff. But then as they start to add players through high school and the transfer portal, you really will be able to start to marry personnel to potentially, schematic, schemes as well. So, Yeah, I look forward to it, man. I enjoy it. Brings me back around to football, and interesting to see how Nebraska does with this new defensive coordinator in 3-3-5.
Absolutely. So with that, that was Blackshirt Breakdown, breaking down a few plays from Tony White's time with the Syracuse Orange. I'm Steve Marik. That is Jay Foreman, and that was a Blackshirt Breakdown. See y'all later.